I'm Nicola and Crime World is back at Cork Opera House on March 27th, where Niall and I will be uncovering the secret world of Christy, the Dapper Don Kinahan. Join us for this live show. Tickets, corkpodcastfestival.ie. We are dipping into the sun-soaked island of Majorca now for a minute, where there's a former Scottish Football League player who has been called Majorca's biggest narco. It's emerged that he was doing business with the Kinahan cartel before his arrest. Not surprising, this story, because we know of connections, very strong connections between the sort of Bomber Kavanagh, Liam Byrne wing of the Kinahan cartel and the island of Majorca. We'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah, it's actually a fascinating story because a guy called Stefan Milosevic, now he played in Scotland in the 2010s. He played for Airdrieonians. So, you know.
Never heard of them.
No.
Should I have? Are
well,
they really
I mean,
famous?
Well, I mean, they're not famous. Like, I suppose, you know, but they're still a well-known Scottish club, professional club. So, but I mean, his father is actually the manager of the Serbian national team. So a very well-known guy, Goran Milosevic. So, I mean, a very famous background.
Yeah.
But what it was when Goran was playing as a professional footballer himself, he played for Majorca, who would be in the La Liga, the top league in Spain. And so Stefan was raised over there. I think he became a Spanish citizen ultimately, and he obviously then became a professional footballer, less successful than his father, ended up in Scotland, but ultimately seems to have drifted into the world of crime as he retired, and has become what the prosecutors are describing as Majorca's biggest narco. And they've brought a case against him. He was arrested last year. But as part of that, you're hearing of wiretaps again, recorded conversations.
What year are these wiretaps from?
Well, that isn't fully clear, but it certainly is, you know, he was arrested in 2025, so it's in the years preceding to that, and it stretches over a period of time. So it's probably a couple of years before. And what you're hearing is you're not hearing him tape conversations of him talking to the Kinahans. But what you are here are him talking to his other associates about dealing with the Kinahan cartel.
That's what he's calling them.
He's calling them, he's basically, according to prosecutors, there are references to his contacts with the Kinahans, whom he places in Dubai, and how he's becoming their supplier for bringing drugs to the Balearic Islands.
Oh, yes, which was always very important to them.
Yeah.
And just jump in here now for a second, just to explain the connections between the Kinahans, and particularly the Kavanagh Byrne outfit, before we go into these, what we've heard in the wiretaps. But basically, they, for a long time, appeared to use the Balearic Islands to test certain drugs. They had strong connections in Ibiza, Majorca, and particularly Majorca, where Thomas Bomber Kavanagh had a very valuable property in a place called Calador, which is like, you know, one of these very snazzy ports where yachts pull in, and the kind of, you know, Porto Curvo, those kind of places. Very sophisticated. And the home beside Bomber Kavanagh's waterfront house was occupied by the man we call Mr. Nobody.
Declan Brady, yeah.
Declan Brady. And they all used to holiday there over a particular month in the summer, the wider Kavanagh Byrne operation. Now, we've spoken before about how Liam Byrne would have been friendly with Daniel Kinahan, and Sean McGovern, who was Liam Byrne's business partner and one-time best friend, ended up in Dubai as Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man. But when it comes to Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, he remains a little bit aloof from them. He never socialised with Daniel Kinahan. I think there was a lot of business done for sure, and he was over and back to Dubai, but he wasn't kind of knocking around with him in that same way.
Yeah.
Kavanagh was really more on tier with Christy Kinahan Sr., a more mature man. But nonetheless, Majorca was very, very important for them. And Ibiza, obviously, as you know, is the real party island, and it's where a lot of drugs are road tested and seen for their value in the markets.
And they had younger associates who were said to have had part ownership in clubs in Ibiza in particular. So they were both owning the clubs and owning the drugs trade. And of course, it's hugely lucrative. I mean, Ibiza is probably must be more drugs sold in Ibiza per capita than almost anywhere else in the world.
Was it in Majorca that Liam Byrne was arrested, or
It was
it
ultimately
Tenerife?
No, it was in Majorca as well,
where he was ultimately arrested and brought back to the UK in relation to the gun plot which undid Thomas Kavanagh and all around him. So just going back then to those wiretaps, so what are we hearing from them?
These are obviously translated, but it's alleged that they did a deal basically with Milosevic, who is linked to this Nazi biker gang called the United Tribunes España. And it said in the prosecutors say the Irish mafia was also involved in large-scale drug trafficking and money laundering network in Majorca. According to a recent court resolution, the investigation into the largest anti-drug operation in recent years on the island has revealed business dealings between Stefan Milosevic and the Kinahan clan, considered one of the most powerful criminal groups in the world. In conversations intercepted from Milosevic, there are references to his contacts with the Kinahans, whom he places in Dubai to become their supplier for bringing drugs into the Balearic Islands. And this is really what they're looking for him to do. According to what he explains in these wiretaps, he closed a deal with the Irish Mafia to supply them with large shipments of hash at 1,500 euros per kilo. So this would make sense, really, isn't it? Because the Kinahans obviously always had their own contacts for cocaine to come from South America, but they always used a variety of people for the cannabis trade. And this goes back 20 years, doesn't it? Where they dealt directly with the Moroccans and other people. Because cannabis, while we don't think of it or talk about it as regularly as cocaine, certainly
I think it's 25% of the drug market. It's a huge percentage. I've always wondered, would it not make sense to
get into that end of it?
But to legalise that end of it and or some way take it back from the drug industry.
Well, certainly there is an argument.
Big tranche there of money, though, to be taken back out of the hands of organised crime.
It is. And if you certainly historically then the Kinahans were making huge amounts of money from cannabis, and probably as much as cocaine, certainly for a long time. Maybe the cocaine eventually became far more lucrative. So they were using these different suppliers to supply them with cannabis, and this guy put himself forward as one. So 1,500 per kilo is what the deal he had done with them. Now, according to, if that kilo was seized by the police, what value would they give that at? Do you know?
No.
Well, about 20,000 euros. So that's what they say the markup on it is. Now, obviously, that's the street value. So if the Spanish police say they seized £2 million worth of cannabis, it's at 20,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
And you can see how little the suppliers are actually paying for it. They're paying, they're paying, less than 10%.
So you should be feeling sorry for the farmers.
No, I'm just saying that when you talk about these
where's their lobby group?
Well, when you talk about these multi-million euro shipments, but you can see when it comes back to the guys who actually buy it at source, they're buying it at far less.
But where the money, we are assuming the value of the money as being in our world, whereas the money is worth a lot more. It goes a lot further in some of those countries where it produces.
It does. I know it does, cash. And it just shows you why drug trafficking is such a good business, because the markup is absolutely massive. He is charged.
Niall says get into drug trafficking.
No, or Nicola says legalise it so the state can.
We're going rogue here.
We're going totally rogue.
This is really another piece of this jigsaw of the story of the Kinahans International and their connections, their supply chains, how much of the world they had influence and have influence on when it comes to the drug industry and organised crime.
It is. And there's another interesting bit, actually, which we have to just end on, I suppose, is that as he's arrested, there's also a police officer in Majorca arrested with him. And again, this goes back into, something we've always heard about Spain. And there's obviously a huge trial going on in Spain currently about another police officer who was found with, 20 million in cash buried in the walls of his house, which is slightly suspicious to say the least. But, that's also part of it, isn't it? The corrupting of people and people
For
in
sure,
official.
it's their MO. It's their MO across the world. Okay. Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Nicola.
Have you checked out our new website, crimeworld.com, where you'll find ad-free exclusive content, including our new series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. Subscribers can listen to all 9 parts, but for those of you not yet signed up, here's an extract from part 1. It's July 25th. Ipswich Crown Court. 3 of Ireland's most notorious criminals flicker onto the courtroom screens from prisons across England. Thomas Bomber Kavanagh appears on Zoom from Belmarsh Prison, looking surprisingly tanned and trim in a dark grey t-shirt. Beside him on the screen, his lieutenants Gary Flash Vickery and Daniel Canning appear from other prisons, fidgeting in their seats. In contrast, Kavanagh sits bolt upright, with arms folded across his chest, and listens intently in an interview room with bathroom blue walls. As a female prison guard nips in and out of Kavanagh's interview room, the exasperated judge, Justice Martin Levitt, stops proceedings to scold, "We'll just wait for Belmarsh to stop coming in and out of the room because it's interrupting us yet again." Over the morning, there are various arguments set out by wigged barristers who call each other "my learned friend" in clipped British accents. But the outcome is clear. Kavanagh has 3 months to pay back more than €1.26 million in criminal assets, or face another 12 years in prison. One by one, the court strips him of his assets: luxury watches, designer clothes, equity in a Majorcan property, rental income, cash seized by police, and even the cost of a family holiday to Cancun. And the biggest blow, his half share of a fortified Tamworth mansion, the marble-floored stronghold where he reigned like an Italian mob boss in the English Midlands. The court was told his wife, Joanne Byrne, the sister of David Byrne, who was murdered in the Regency, had not responded to a court notice. Kavanagh, sitting at a wooden desk in Belmarsh, betrays no sign of emotion at the prospect of losing the family home. But behind that blank stare is a man who once weaponised fear with precision. Police wiretaps revealed a mobster, almost scientific, in his obsession with torture, casually calculating exactly how much pain he could inflict, terrifying men into loyalty without paralysing them completely. Britain's National Crime Agency finally brought him down, jailing him for 26 years. Now, here in Ipswich Crown Court, they're dismantling what's left of his empire. And then, one final twist. It appears that Bomber couldn't do his time. In a scheme that wouldn't have been out of place in a Guy Ritchie movie, Kavanagh tried to shave some time off his 21-year sentence for drug smuggling by orchestrating a plot from behind bars. Hoping to dupe authorities into handing him a lighter sentence, he tried to lead the National Crime Agency officers to a weapons stash. Instead, he was rumbled and slapped with another 6 years. We spoke to some of the NCA officers who were involved in taking Bomber down, including one who was tasked with following the money. It was a job that took him across international borders.
This particular case, I would say, was complex because we had overseas assets in Ireland and in Spain, Lanzarote, And there was also the inquiries when pulling together the investigation as well, because there was Dutch hauliers involved. There was drugs were coming in, say, from the Netherlands. They were coming in from Spain. So there was quite a lot of international partners we were involved with when we were pulling this together. So the actual value of the drugs, which was agreed on between the prosecution and defence, eventually was 10,470,833, and that was for 3,750,833 of cannabis and 6,720,000 pounds worth of cocaine. The benefit figure for Thomas, with all the other assets involved, we agreed on just over 12 million of benefit from his criminality. And we started off somewhere around 15, 16 million. So we've come down about 4 million. And the majority of that is the difference in the value of the drugs. Knowing the significance of him, it was really great result to get him convicted and now to get the confiscation order against him as well and have that benefit hanging over him.
Officers who went through the rows of designer gear in Bomber's gated mansion were astonished at the sheer scale of luxury goods. The drug proceeds had been splurged on luxury and security in almost equal measure. The place was sealed, reinforced doors, bulletproof glass, and cameras covering every approach. Inside was a display of wealth that would rival that of Imelda Marcos. Money was lavished on Moncler jackets, a shoe collection worthy of a Saudi princess, and a watch collection fit for a Premier League dressing room. The list goes on. 30 pairs of identical Armani jeans, Gucci labels, a collection of handbags that a Kardashian would be proud of. This was how the cartel's profits were laundered, through spending sprees and rolls of cash handed across the shop counters in Harrods. The definition of ill-gotten gains was hanging in wardrobes in his luxury mansion in Tamworth. Cartel members know the risk of peddling drugs across international borders, but when officers start rifling through their six-figure wardrobes, confiscating their luxury watches and handbag collections, it does hit a nerve.
A lot of criminals are quite happy, getting imprisoned for the crime is part of the job. But when you actually say, now we're going to take all your assets, that's when it gets personal, because that's the reason they're committing crime, is for their lifestyle. That's their job. And we are then taking it all away or getting an order to take it away. So that's when it can get quite personal.
The court's inventory of Bomber's lavish spending gave an inkling into just how far removed he'd become from the day-to-day drug trade. He oversaw the delegation of smuggling routes, of finance and of enforcement to trusted lieutenants. The proceedings in Ipswich Crown Court didn't just mark the fall of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh's personal empire. They also signalled something far bigger. Bomber's collapse marks the first true fracture in what had long looked like an impenetrable underworld machine. The cartel's chief strategist, the man who kept its international supply lines running smoothly, had finally been taken down. Seen as untouchable for years, his sentence for importing tens of millions of pounds of drugs was a major shot across the bow of the Kinahan cartel. And just 2 weeks after Kavanagh's sentencing, the United States raised the stakes.
And so today, the United States Department of State is pleased to announce a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to the financial disruption of the KTCO or the arrest and convictions of its leaders, Christopher Vincent Kinahan, Daniel Joseph Kinahan, and Christopher Kinahan Jr.
You've been listening to an extract from our 9-part series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. To listen to all 9 parts, log on to crimeworld.com and hit subscribe.